A man landed in the prison for a crime that he did not commit. After several days of waiting for justice, he felt so stuck in the prison. It was at this time that his dear friend sent him a prayer rug. He began praying 5 times a day. He began noticing the weaving of the rug. As he was bowing and sitting still, he noticed the odd patterns on the rug, just at the Qibla, where the head touches the rug. And it was at this time that he noticed the pattern of the lock of the prison that he was confined in. As he saw closer, he saw that there was a pattern which would help him to unlock, and that was his way to freedom. My dear friends, how many times do you sit to re-examine your life and find those patterns? How many times do you feel stuck in the past? Let me share with you my personal story. It was when I was 19 and I was going through my identity crisis when I landed for a Vipassana course, a 10-day meditation camp. It was my hardest and it was my first. It was too difficult for me to sit in silence. My mind wandered back to times when I felt I wasn't worthy enough, I wasn't good enough. And these thoughts kept surfacing. And I tried hard to come back to the present. I vividly remember my day 5. It was 4 a.m. in the morning when I was walking, heading towards the Dhamma hall, and my body miraculously took a turn, and I found a place to sit. It was at this time that I could see the shadows and the patterns of the night, the deepest and the darkest hour. I took a deep breath, and right in front of me, I saw the first ray of light. I saw the dawn and the rising and the changing of the sky color. In moments, it dawned upon me that I had it all inside me as well. The dust, the shadow, the bones, the flesh, and the meat. Yes, in wholeness, I'm all of that. It was a great moment of acceptance, my dear friends. Great moment of acceptance. They say somewhere in the middle of your story, you're able to have this viewpoint and you're able to see the expansiveness of the future. And this expansiveness of the future helps you to redirect your past. And you see the past becomes filtered, it becomes slightly smaller, but it's all propelled by the present. You know, in our lives, many a times we do stumble upon our destiny periods. Destiny points, I call them. And this was one of my destiny points, where I knew that I had to move on and I had to move ahead. And I had a picture clear at that point of time. I had a dream. It felt like I spoke to myself. I'm going to leave footprints on the sand of time. You know, when this destiny spoke to me, it felt like a prophecy. Just like, many of those mythological tales where you have Lord Krishna's prophecy made much before he was born. Like Harry Potter. Yes, it is that time. But at that moment, when I was in my present self, seeing, breathing, knowing that every breath counts, I knew I could make possible shifts. And every breath that I took from that onwards would be the one which will serve my growth. That was the promise I made that morning, and that changed my life. Yeah, I have gratitude towards my family and my environment that I was born with. I was so fortunate that I was born in a family of storytellers. So my cup was full of stories to offer. And I was so natural with visualizations. You know, our brain is hardwired to remember through stories, hardwired through images and words. And it is in these images and words that our body naturally starts living in that reality, and it propels you to do those actions. Come on, let's all do this together. I request all of you to just relax your body, relax every part of your body, and sit straight as though you're witnessing something at this moment. You know, the Zen Buddhism is to just sit back like this. The position of sitting back like this is witnessing. So you could all just sit back and witness. Close your eyes and imagine that you're sitting near the bank of the river, with your feet dipped in the water. You can hear the sound of the stream trickling, the raging of the river, and you feel the freshness of that moment. You can have fragrance of every flower that's blooming at that point of time, every fruit that's on the tree. You feel the butterflies fluttering, the bees buzzing, the majestic mountains protecting you. And it feels so cool. Relax your body and slowly open your eyes. Did you notice? Yeah? It just took some seconds to transport yourself. This way, you can reimagine, reclaim your stories, and make a better version of yourself, moment to moment, as you start serving your personal growth. That's the promise you keep to yourself. Now, this land and this route to transformation will have many triggers, I promise you. And for you to handle those triggers, you'll also have to work towards a process of healing, towards the way you look at perceptions, and you have to look at multiple perspective shifts. Once again, let me give you a visual guide. Now, right inside you, imagine that there is a room which is very well kept. There are little notes stuck on the wall. There's a little window that opens towards the flowers blossoming. And this is your special room. You keep attending to it all the time, and you find your peace right here. And inside this room, you have 2 chairs. You can see them here. And you have a coffee table there as well. And you can invite people into your sacred space only by appointment. Now let's imagine the person you want to invite at this point of time is your mother. And imagine that you're around 35 years of age, and your mom is sitting next to you here. And as you both are sipping your coffee, sip by sip, you begin to open your heart. And you begin to tell her the moments of your life, your younger days, when she shut you, when she made you feel rejected, when you didn't feel heard, and she's listening to you intently, quietly. And after you finish all that you had to speak, she too smiles. She takes a pause. And she says, I wish to tell you, my dear daughter, or my dear son, you know what happened to me at that stage of my life, when you were of that age? You know, I had my own limitations. You know, I was battling. You know what I went through? And as you listen to that story, to her side of the story, you begin to empathize. And that, my dear friends, changes your story. Come here for a moment, be with me once again. I know how are you feeling right now. A perception shift, maybe? Try this, journal your experiences, feel the processing of your emotions, because that's when you can move your narrative, the moment you move somewhere inside you. And let me explain, your brain is very quick to connect through these images. Your brain works with you. Through my organization, the Secret Passages, I have met many, 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 many participants. I have coached them and guided them to go through coherent and understanding narratives. I have created sharing circles for them to know how to relook at each other's stories as well. And also have woven the collective yarn. And they have told me that they have been able to reclaim their narratives, reframe it. Now that you know that there are perspective shifts happening over here, my quest over here started growing. And being an educator, I had to empower through the stories that I tell. And the stories that I pick up are from the fables and the traditional tales, right? So I began questioning. So I started curating stories to cure. And one of the stories that I want to share with all of you right now is the story of the fox and the grapes. Now, all of you know that we have this fox who could not pluck those grapes, and he gives this false consolation to his brain, saying that the grapes are sour. Now, to me, this is an unfinished story, because he had this heart which was singing, what luscious grapes are those. Who wants to stay in that story? It's quite toxic. So in my retelling, I say that night the fox didn't sleep. And he felt very restless and his heart began singing. Next day he wakes up and he starts upskilling himself. He practices and he's just able to taste those grapes. What luscious grapes are these? And at this point of time, his body, his heart, his head were in alignment. They were able to sing the same songs. I think that's the story that I would like to tell. What kind of stories are we telling? And the true meaning of life is to actually taste all kinds of grapes, be it sour, be it sweet, right? Sometimes you find the grapes that are sour also sweet. So start tasting all the grapes. Don't give up. And yes, in retrospect, if you see, we had stories where villains died as villains. Why not have these villains also go through their heroic journey as well? And have a shift there? Why not have characters from the stories who tell you that, yes, I admitted this mistake and this is a lesson I learned. Like, look at the traditional story, Cinderella, which most of you have grown up with. Now, what's happening in this story? And what if we have a story right at the beginning? Cinderella's stepmom, who is the best grandmother for Cinderella's kids. And she is going to tell the story to them. And in this story, she confides in the children about the mistakes that she did, about her own insecurities. How many times do you really tell stories with that narrative? Or from that point of view? Imagine this world would be such a beautiful place if everyone will stand up and own up their mistakes. Yes, it's time that we reframe our stories. And we create safe space for others to share their stories as well. So now that you know that you need to start shifting your perspectives, open up these perceptions as well, the last step is action. Good work takes tough decisions. And good relationships have to undergo difficult conversations. And the constant working towards resolving conflicts. And many times when you are there at the center of that conflict, you'll also notice that you want to go to that time when it all began, and that's where exactly the return journey is, and that's where the full circle is. Where the story begins is where the story ends. So, my dear friends, it's time that you tell the story to yourself first. Because the moment you start telling it to yourself, you actually show hope. You show grace, and you show shift in perceptions. So there are 4 tools here. One is you accept yourself in the wholeness. Second is begin visualization and add bigger details to your stories. And third is change perspectives. And fourth is action. I would love to close my story with close my entire story of this TEDx with a short story. You see, I'm a storyteller, so I have to do this. So once there was a shepherd who climbed up the hill, and he noticed a key flower. It was quite fragrant. And he walked towards a stone house with a wooden door. It was at this time he saw a keyhole. And he was able to put in the key flower into the keyhole, and click, it opens. And inside the stone house, he saw his name, he saw his birth date, he saw his life written on it, past, future. He wanted to memorize his future, word to word, chapter to chapter, and he just couldn't do it. He failed. And right at the center of that stone house, he saw heaps of gemstones. He thought. He went and picked it up, put it inside his pocket. Another one, pocket. Another one, pocket. And he ran, he rushed, climbed down the hill. When it began raining very heavily, soaked and drenched in rain, he enters a little house. And then he instantly puts his hand inside his pockets. To his surprise, he sees everything had turned into crushed leaves. He climbed up the hill once again. He was looking for that key flower, looking for that stone house, but he just couldn't find anything. And it felt like the rain had washed away everything that had happened moments ago. And now he could feel the gasping of his breath. He could feel the thumping of his heartbeat. And in front of him, he saw the gray clouds turning into white. And he saw the sun shining bright. He took a deep breath, and he told himself that the treasure lies in the now. Thank you.